My things are all messed up here.
I'll fix it.
All right, thanks.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer. It is 6 past the hour of 12 noon on this Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Sunny skies in downtown Madison, the world headquarters, where it feels like spring. Mr. Zommers looking for temperatures in much of the state near or above 50 degrees. The old groundhog in Sun Prairie, Jimmy, appears to be right for right now, spring being a little early this year. I'll take it.
Yeah, today I had just a thin sweatshirt on the way in, and that was too much.
And I may be topless by the time the show is over. I have my Wisconsin hoodie on, much to Mom's chagrin, but it's warm in here. It's very, very warm. So
Quite toasty.
But look, first world problems, that's the least of our problems. Huge show today, important show. Coming up here at the bottom of the hour, our very own Luke Mathers. Little Tuesday tangents with Lukester, talk a little news, a little sports, find out what's grinding his gears. The Wisconsin Badger men's basketball team trying to get back on track tonight. They take on the fake UW. We say University of Wisconsin, UW, right? Well, these yahoos out in the state of Washington, University of Washington, they call themselves UW as well. So it's the battle of the UWs, the Badgers versus the Huskies tonight. Broadcast starts at 7 p.m. across many stations on the Civic Media Radio Network, including Amory, Wisconsin Rapids, Racine, Kenosha, and Richland Center. You can also listen for free on the Civic Media app. More on that with Luke a little bit later. Then also in hour number 2, what's worse, pitting two major U.S. cities against each other. But both of these places have mayors that have fallen really short lately. New York City and Los Angeles. We'll talk about that. And then at 1:34, and this is something I am really looking forward to, Kelly Meyerhofer, who has been on this program before. She is the great higher education reporter for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She wrote an absolutely powerful story yesterday. It is the story of Sarah Schulz, or Schulze. We'll get the correct pronunciation from Kelly when she comes on, dealing with mental health and college athletics. Sarah was runner at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who died by suicide in 2022. Her mom talked to her 6 weeks before and said she never sounded happier. Her mom tells Kelly in the story, that's one of the things of death by suicide. It's so unpredictable. And you're not going to want to miss it, because the ending to Kelly Meyerhofer's story is incredible. Be here for that in hour number 2 at 1:30. But first of all, get to some headlines this morning. Breaking news, courtesy of channel3000.com, the CBS affiliate station here in Madison. Over the last half hour, many people, even if you're not from Madison, are familiar with Tyrrell Basin. Big ski hill area here just outside of Madison in Mount Horeb. The owner of Tyrrell Basin has been arrested last night after a teen reported being physically assaulted for being on the ski hill without a pass. Dane County Sheriff's deputies responded after receiving a report of a distraught teen walking along the road near the ski hill at around 6 o'clock yesterday evening. The 17-year-old boy told deputies he had been on the ski hill without a pass. The staff had asked him to leave, and he reportedly complied. However, as the teen was walking away, Tyrrell Basin owner Nathaniel McGree, and another staff member allegedly followed him off the property and physically assaulted him. The teen reported that McGree made him return to the ski hill and pay $120, twice the price of a regular pass, and the teen complied. Online records show McCree was booked into the Dane County Jail at 9:46 last night. He faces charges of disorderly conduct and physical abuse of a child. The news does not get better in Milwaukee. According to WISN Channel 12 Milwaukee Television, the Milwaukee Police Department have arrested 4 individuals in connection with the death of 15-year-old Makai Neal, whose body was discovered in a burning vehicle. Police said 4 people were arrested in connection to the homicide: a 39-year-old woman, a 24-year-old man, a 21-year-old man, and a 21-year-old woman. The car was found in an alley on the city's north side at 26th and Locust Streets. Neal, who was identified using dental records due to the condition of the body. Criminal charges were referred to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office. 15 years old. According to the reports, Makai Neal was a star quarterback on a football team in the Milwaukee area. 15 years old. And a 39-year-old woman, a 24-year-old man, a 21-year-old man, and a 21-year-old woman. 4 adults allegedly kill a 15-year-old kid in a burning car in Milwaukee. What in the hell is going on? Turning to international news from yesterday, an important vote in the United Nations yesterday. The United Nations adopted Ukraine's resolution condemning Russia aggression and demanding the immediate withdrawal of Putin's forces, marking the war's 3rd anniversary. The United States, get this, joined Russia, North Korea, Belarus, and Hungary in opposing the resolution. The United States, Russia, North Korea, Belarus, and Hungary. 3 years ago, would not have had that on my bingo card as being a new alliance, but yet we should not be surprised. Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's negotiator and special envoy, was on CNN with Jake Tapper over the weekend. Tapper asked him, look, you're an envoy, you're a negotiator. Yes, we get it. When you negotiate, both sides have to make concessions. What concessions do you believe that Russia should make in ending the war with Ukraine? Here's Steve Witkoff, Trump's negotiator.
Has been putting a lot of pressure on Ukrainian President Zelensky, as you just noted, and laying out the concessions Ukraine will have to make to end the war. What concessions will Russia have to make?
Well, I think in any peace deal, each side is going to make concessions, whether it's territorial concessions, whether it's economic concessions. I think there's a whole array of things that happen in a deal, and you'll see concessions from both sides. And that's the president's, that's what he does best. He brings people together. He gets them to understand that the pathway to peace is concessions and consensus building. And I think you're going to see a very successful result here. We've been struggling with this conflict for 3.5 years. No different than Gaza. The president has basically said to himself, we need something more purposeful. What we've been doing in the past has not worked. Now it's time to get something to work. And if we get something...
In other words, if you listen to all that, at the end of the day, according to Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Trump is not asking Russia for any concessions. Meanwhile, over on Fox over the weekend, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth also weighed in on Ukraine. Even the Fox hosts trying to get Hegseth to admit the truth that it was Russia who is and was the aggressor 3 years ago yesterday in firing the first shots unprovoked on Ukraine. Even Fox trying to get Hegseth to confirm and admit that. Here's the cut.
Zelensky should come to the table because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country, and we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation. That's Hegseth's response, Secretary of Defense. Answer, wrong. Even Fox knows the truth. Even Fox News stating it plainly that Russia is the aggressor. And Hegseth just muddies it up by saying, well, it's a complex situation. The United States yesterday voting with Russia and Belarus and North Korea, in my opinion, is the final capitulation. The United States, under Donald Trump, sent a very clear message. They are no longer interested in an alliance with Europe, with our American allies, and are now in an allegiance with what Ronald Reagan, the Republican president who once called the USSR, Russia, the evil empire. And Reagan was right. And H.W. Bush and W. Bush largely maintained that same line, as did Republican nominees for president Bob Dole, John McCain, and Mitt Romney, as did Democratic presidents Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. Not until Trump has there been a switch in alliances from freedom and democracy to authoritarianism and dictatorship. Indeed, a sad day for the United States of America. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Mark in Perdisac. Mark, thanks for calling. What say you?
You're kind of echoing what I would say here is that here we make the victim have to pay the concessions. For God's sakes, what's next from these guys? For rape victims to have to make concessions to their rapist? I mean, because look, the number of women that have been raped by the Russians coming through. The children kidnapped and murdered, and people just murdered by Vladimir Putin. And Trump is down on his. I mean, you might as well have an image of Donald Trump kissing Putin's feet, like the image of him
right.
kissing Musk's feet.
Mm.
I mean, it's disgusting. It is just disgusting.
Yeah.
And, that unfortunately FCC rules, don't allow me to use the full
We appreciate that.
expression here, but it's just ridiculous that Donald Trump should be ashamed, and Ron Johnson's office are taking calls today, but I mean that I called and complained, but Ron Johnson, what did he sell? What part of
Got to
his
run,
soul
Mark.
did he
Up
sell
against the
back in
clock.
2018 when he
Yep,
started?
agree with you, Mark. Thanks. Up against the clock. Come on back. Take your calls. And also why, on this one thing, I agree with Donald Trump. We'll tell you when I come back on Allbaugh Show in 6 p.m.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
I'm hungry. What's cooking?
Oh, no, not me. It's your turn.
Oh, we're back to taking turns?
Yes.
Well, how about Sugar River Pizza?
Oh, yeah, now they can cook.
I could really go for some of that 12-hour smoked pulled pork.
Ooh, and some pasta. Okay, now I'm hungry. Sugar River, here we come.
And they have that great kids menu, too.
We don't have any kids.
Right. That's beside the point. The point is, I'm hungry, you're hungry.
Let's go.
Yes. And we should talk about having some kids.
Get in the car.
I said when I was talking to Angie and Monroe screening her call, I was like, I'll let Todd know that we have you on the line. I don't know why my mouth just did that.
What?
I'll let Todd know.
If it's not Mrs. Paul, throw it back.
Throw it back.
Revitalize damaged tissue. This approach can provide long-lasting relief from pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, and other joints.
Sorry, everybody, for the downer start to the show, but kind of a heavy news
There's a lot
day.
happening.
There's a lot happening. Trying to get through it.
Free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 608.
Also, I forgot my reusable mug today, and I was in a hurry.
It goes to the root of the problem to
I
resolve
went
it
to
at
the
its
evil Star.
source.
They're not evil,
Already
but
used
I
by
went to
thousands of
Starbucks. I didn't get a paper
satisfied
cup today.
nationwide. This joint pain
There are
therapy
worse
is
things you could do.
available right
Yes,
now to the
absolutely. And
public.
Much, much
Starbucks
worse.
putting back like,
For
I don't know,
qualified
1,000
candidates.
people
Again,
in
to
management,
find
middle
out if you're a
management
viable
today, and
candidate
all also getting rid of the more complex drinks because people apparently are complaining about the length of time. I will tell you,
that.
as a former Starbucks barista, that was my first job in coffee. Some people get wackadoodle with their Starbucks drinks. It's like I want a venti, skinny latte, half oat milk, 2 pumps of vanilla, sugar-free with extra foam. That's not a made-up request.
And then if it's not flawless,
right,
they will get so upset.
You need to remake this
for free.
Right. Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is 21 past the hour of 12 noon. Luke Mathers, Tuesday Tangents with Lukester coming up at the bottom of the hour after the Farm Report with the great Pam Yankee, the self-described fabulous farm babe. Do not want to miss that. Looking forward to that. What's worse, in hour 2, New York City or Los Angeles? But by the way, both of these mayors are in hot water. 2 Democratic mayors in hot water. We'll discuss that later on. And then really looking forward at 1:34 in hour number 2, Kelly Meyerhofer of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel will be here and talking about this very powerful story that she had reported in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel yesterday, the story of Sarah Schulze on mental health and college athletics. Right now, talking about Donald Trump, talking about Ukraine and the fact the United States voted with our adversaries, Russia and North Korea. Well, adversaries up until Trump. They voted against a resolution in the UN marking the 3rd anniversary of the Ukraine war, in which it said that Russia was responsible for the war, which is the truth. There's no gray area there. Russia, unprovoked, attacked Ukraine. Period. And yet the Trump administration voted with Russia, Belarus, North Korea against the resolution. 855-752-4842. Let's go quickly to Wisco Paul. Wisco, always a pleasure. What say you?
Thanks for taking my call, Todd. I'd agree with Trump on 2 things, only 2 things, getting rid of the penny and the daylight savings time.
All right, very good.
Okay, that's about it.
Right.
And as far as, just to follow up a little bit with what Mark said yesterday, and I think I can say this, it's got to be a WTF moment for the whole world.
Right.
And I don't know who our friends are going to be if anything does go wrong. I just want to mention 2 quick things in passing here. Number one, I'm trying to visit as many national parks as possible. I've been all through the West, and I can't think of one I've missed. I imagine there is, everything from Glacier all the way down to Zion. They're beautiful, and they need to be protected, and you need enough staff to do that. I don't get this. You're not going to save enough money to not protect them. The other thing, Todd, is Medicaid. For heaven's sake, you have to have some safety net for people. Sure, there's probably some way somewhere. This state doesn't take the Medicare extension, which is kind of dumb. But at any rate, I drive handicapped people around in my part-time job, and I don't think people understand how many people need help. And you know, if this is the way the Republican Party's not the Republican Party anymore, it's the mega party, and these people are just getting heartless. I mean, Medicaid. All right. That's about my gamut today.
I hear you, Wisco. Always appreciate you. Thank you so much. Keep her between the lines out there. 752-4842. Going to Angie down in beautiful Monroe. Angie, want to talk about Ukraine? What say you?
Yeah, I was just wondering, could you see Putin using Trump and us losing all our allies, and then Putin going after us?
Oh, yeah.
And we have no allies left?
I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities.
We'd be sitting ducks then, really.
And that's why I think that
That's just my opinion.
No, I appreciate it, Angie, and that's why I think that people say, "Oh, well, what's happening in Ukraine isn't important." And Trygve Olsen has said this much better than I have because he actually worked in Eastern Europe against Putin. What happens in Ukraine is absolutely essential to the United States for our security. What it means, because we still, at least for today, have an alliance with NATO. If Trump is to continue his march across Europe, well, maybe that was a Freudian slip. If Putin is to continue his march across Europe, Poland is next. Member of NATO, an attack on one is an attack on all. If Putin attacks Poland, we are obligated to go to their rescue, along with the other NATO nations. Although that is now under question under Donald Trump. 855-752-4842. Gene, listening on WCFW in Eau Claire. Gene, thanks for calling. What's he?
Great show as usual, sir.
Thank you.
Yesterday we were talking a little bit about Trump's personality issues, and same with Elon Musk. And, they got these narcissistic personality factors. And, like Trump, he reacts to criticism with feelings of rage. I got my book out here. So, and has a grandiose sense of importance, exaggerates his achievements and talents, expects to be noticed as special without appropriate achievement, fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, and a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectation. I mean, everybody has to tell him how wonderful he is, how good he is.
Right.
Needs constant attention and admiration. Lack of empathy, inability to recognize and experience how others feel.
Yep.
And there's another thing, too, that Matt brought up yesterday, and I thought it's important because a lot of people don't understand sadistic personality disorder, and it's a pervasive pattern of cruel, demeaning, and aggressive behavior, and it humiliates and demeans people in the presence of others, is amused or takes pleasure in that type of thing.
The guy actually has a lot of problems, Gene. I appreciate I'm up against the clock here, Gene, but I appreciate the call. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Carolyn calling from the 262. Carolyn, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling in. What's say you?
Yeah, actually, I'm from Van Orden District, which is sort of the western side of Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
I just have my old number.
Oh, okay. Very good. Very good.
I guess my comment is it's 1984. If they say right, we should go left. If they say up, we should go down. An example today is a resolution on the House floor. I called up. Sometimes the person answering Van Orden's phone, there's a particular person that's rude. But, there are cases where they're nice, and you can have a conversation with them. They claim that if I went to the site and looked at the bill, you'll see that Medicare is not being addressed. And that is actually not true. And I cite that in my Facebook page. On page 44 of that resolution, Medicare falls under, I got to look it up if you don't mind for a second.
I got we're up against the clock, Carol, but we'll check it out. And
it falls under the Commerce and Energy.
Okay.
bill, and they're looking for $880 billion cuts or $1 million cuts, which matches Medicaid exactly.
Yep. No, Carol, they're absolutely going after Medicaid, and Joe Biden called him out on that on the House floor during his last State of the State address. Back with Luke Mathers. Also, yes, we will play the cut for you. Donald Trump, Pam Bondi on something I actually agree with them on. Stay tuned. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Madison's real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. This is your local Civic Media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
No one wants to open their mailbox and find a swarm of bees, but for those passionate about beekeeping, that's exactly what they'll be hoping for here soon. And with the new year underway, Blaine's Farm and Fleet is helping beekeepers prepare for spring with their live honeybee orders. So whether you're a seasoned beekeeper or just starting, Now is the perfect time to set your hive up for success. Joe Lopez, communications manager for Blaine's Farm and Fleet, shares everything that you need to know to get your hives buzzing this spring.
Really excited to get those deliveries out. If you order by March 16th, you'll receive your bees between April 22nd and May 16th. Weather dependent, of course. If it's still freezing out, we're going to have to delay that a little bit. We'll have the Harvest Lane 3-pound Italian bees with the queen available, and also their Carnelian Loon. And that's our 2 types of bees that we'll have available that you can order from us online at farmandfleet.com.
Once again, that's Joe Lopez, communications manager for Blaine's Farm and Fleet. And as he said, the sooner that you get your orders in, the better. So make sure that you get your order in by that March 16th
Cam, that was pretty
deadline.
funny.
It's right around the corner.
Cam and
So that
Appleton,
you
when
can make
Gene
sure
was
your
reading
bees
through all that
arrive
stuff,
between
Cam
April
says,
22nd
she is
and May
describing my high
16th.
school Tinder
All of the look
profile.
at
I'm sure you were
Wednesday
very
commodity
successful,
markets
Cam.
right after this.
That's very good, Cam. I like that.
Fungicide outyields the competition by an average of 7 bushels.
Too much
per
light?
acre.
Yeah, it feels like.
You've never been average.
And yes, Cam, I am aware of Anonymous. I have not gotten to read what you sent yet, but I did open it.
It's hotter than a $3 whore in here. That's what it is. It's very warm in the studio today, especially with a hoodie on.
Your best season yet with Veltima fungicide.
Right? Yeah. Justin, winter is ending. Fantastic.
Well, hold on to your britches, everybody.
I can't hear Luke.
Neither can I. Because I didn't have the microphone on.
All right.
Testicle Festival, March 8th. You
The
can
Testicle
enjoy deep-fried
Festival.
delicacies along
There
with
you go.
ice-cold beverages and live music by the Lights Out
I'm
Band.
surprised they're just not calling them Rocky Mountain oysters like they used to, but we used to be a country.
She does in this.
It's the Testicle
win concert
Festival
tickets
where
and to
people
try
are
some fried Rocky
encouraged to
Mountain
hang
oysters.
around,
It all
especially
She
if
just
they're
said Rocky
hungry.
Mountain
7
oysters.
on March 8th. Springfield Corners. See Facebook for more details.
I'm Charity Seedecker for the Midwest Farm Report with a look at your midday markets. Cash corn is trading at $4.78. That's down
Jeez
4.5
Louise.
cents. New crop corn is trading at $4.67, down 3 3/4. Cash beans are trading at $10.30.
All right, we didn't get as far in the list as I thought. So we're gonna start. We got a lot of calls. That's good. People wanted to call in. People wanted to call in about Ukraine. So that was good.
Trading at $5.70.
So we'll start off with the Trumpster and
new crop
a
wheat
Bondi
is
girl.
trading at
Dun 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 dun
On the dairy
dun
side of
dun
things,
dun.
March Class B milk contract
Do you want me to
is
use
trading
that?
at $18.75
No, I know I was going to use
That is down
normal
26
music.
cents.
Yeah, that's fine.
And April milk is
Every time I
trading
hear her
at
name, that's what I think
$2.44,
about.
down
A
20
Bondi
cents.
I did
girl.
use that
For the
before.
Midwest Farm Report, I'm Charity Seebecker.
Bondi.
Never made
Local
that.
Ham
radio
Bondi.
for you
Never made
and
that.
your community.
Really? For the
Nope.
moment.
Civic
Oh,
Media's
actually.
mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
I think James Bond was
Sunny
more
and
prevalent
still
in your generation.
unseasonably
though.
warm today with high temperatures reaching the upper 40s.
Wow.
Got rain rolling in
Wow.
overnight
Can't
Can't
tonight
make too many of those
lingering
jokes. I'm
early
getting
tomorrow
old
morning.
myself.
Ham
now.
Bondi. The James Bond, my generation.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I don't think I'm wrong.
I'm being ganged up on you guys.
don't think I'm wrong.
I don't think I've actually seen a full James Bond movie. I've played James Bond video games.
Yes, Dave, you absolutely could say testicle on the radio. That's a body
Testicle,
part.
testicle.
I'm not sure what to say that much.
We're also not on the radio right now. This is a secret show.
Well, yes, but we can say it.
Yeah, there's a reason that she doesn't do what I just did. You're not trying to be crass, but it is
Right.
just
That's a word.
it's a body part.
It's a body part. It's a word.
As long as you're not using it in a vulgar instance, which in this case is not, it's celebrating a gourmet dish.
I think technically you could use it as a vulgar instance.
Depending. It depends if it insults public sensibilities or whatever the hell the wording is in the FCC rules.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. And it's 34 minutes now past the hour of 12 noon on this Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, last week in February. How about that? But never the last word from our next guest, the wonderful, the fabulous, you know him, you love him, back from vacation, Mr. Luke Mathers. How are you, Luke?
I was back last week.
Well, I know, but yeah, I feel like it's, I don't know, it feels like it's been a while.
Were you thinking I'm gone longer than I actually was?
It felt like it. We're happy to have you back.
Well, glad to be back, Todd.
Yeah, here's some breaking news across the wires, courtesy of CBS. We've talked a lot on this show about the two-year campuses in Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin system being closed down. About half of them now have been closed. According to CBS, Penn State University has identified a set of 12 branch campuses that could close as the university faces financial pressure and declining enrollment. Called Commonwealth campuses, Penn State has 19 satellite campuses away from State College that offer classes and some undergraduate and graduate degrees. Luke, we've talked about before, but public education, higher education, not a priority for some folks.
No, not unless you strap on the pads and play some football on Saturdays.
Well, that's true.
Unfortunately, the satellite campuses that are in communities throughout the portions of the state that do not benefit from the fact that they have a team in collegiate sports. They unfortunately they're seeing that they're on the chopping block.
Yeah.
And they're getting closed and turned away, and so it's going to have a major impact on a lot of different communities, not only here in Wisconsin but Pennsylvania, and I'm sure it's going to be the unfortunate trend in other areas of the country as well.
Just want to put a quick plug in. An hour from now, speaking of universities, going to be talking to the great higher ed reporter at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Kelly Meyerhofer, is going to be here. She had just an absolutely long-form story yesterday in the Journal-Sentinel called "The Pressure on Student Athletes Keeps Mounting." For one UW-Madison runner, it was too much. It's the story of Sarah Schulze, who died by suicide in 2022. It's a story about mental health, about college athletics, and an ending to this story, Luke, that I got a little choked up on. So it's very powerful. I think it's pertinent. We don't talk enough on this show and other places, I feel, about mental health. And so I really appreciate Kelly Meyerhofer's reporting and her being here in an hour.
Yeah, looking forward to hear that conversation between you and Kelly.
Should be fantastic. Right now, though, Luke, here's a sentence that will surprise a lot of people. Donald Trump did something yesterday I agree with.
There you go.
A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Let's play the cut.
Who's the blind squirrel?
Let's play the cut. President Trump yesterday with his Attorney General Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi sitting there and explaining this new gun reform measure. Now, I know I'm getting older. I'm no young stud like Luke here. My memory is short, the mad cow disease, but correct me if I'm wrong, Luke. I believe about 4 months ago during the campaign, we heard do not vote for Vice President Kamala Harris because she and the Democrats are coming for your guns. We want no part of any sensible gun reform. And then when Tony Evers earlier this year in his State of the State address proposed sensible gun reform for people who are struggling with mental health issues and are going to harm themselves or others, let's remove guns out of their hands. And we heard nothing but from the NRA and folks like that. No. We can't do that. Do I have that right, Luke?
That all sounds correct, Todd.
With your young brain.
Yeah, yep.
All right, very good.
Zommers,
right.
Let's check it by another younger brain.
Is that correct, Zommers?
That is 100% correct.
All right, so I have two young brains saying Todd's memory is not foggy. That's what happened. But here's what happened yesterday at the White House with President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi.
We've been rewriting it, and we are going to bring in something called the Gun Violence Restraining Order. So if someone is civilly committed, typically you can hold them for up to 72 hours, but people are getting out within 24 hours, the majority of them. So what we want to do is let law enforcement come in and take the guns.
Good.
They're a danger to themselves
Which you can't
or
do
others.
right now.
Well, because without being adjudicated. So because they're a danger to themselves.
You want them to take the guns and
when they are
not go through 6 months of legal trials and everything
Exactly.
else,
But we also have to give the mentally ill the due process in which they deserve, President. So what we're doing is they're going to be able to take the guns when they're taken into custody or into the hospital. And then when they're released, within 24 hours or 72 hours later, typically it's 24 hours, but law enforcement will have 72 hours to determine whether they should give those guns back or they can go to a judge and say, Your Honor, please keep these guns. We feel this person is still a danger to himself or others, whether
So
they're
this
in or
would
out
not
of
have
custody.
worked the way it's currently constituted. This would not have worked with Cruz as it's currently constituted.
As it's currently written.
So you're going to make changes.
President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and again, Luke, keep me honest, that sounds very similar, if not exactly the same, to some of the sensible gun reforms that Vice President Harris was proposing in the campaign last fall, and that Tony Evers is proposing here in Wisconsin in his State of the State address last month.
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty common sense approach to addressing a shockingly high number of gun deaths from individuals that are harms to themselves or to loved ones when there's domestic violence and in households like that. And so if there are instances where law enforcement can come in and remove firearms from those situations, it would improve health outcomes for abuse victims, but also individuals suffering from mental health crises. And so it is a common sense aspect. It was also a common sense aspect when, in I believe the wake of the Las Vegas shooting, I could be getting the year wrong, I want to say 2017, 2018, during the first Trump administration, there was a common sense approach to say, hey, let's remove bump stocks. It is not something that should be intended to make something that is semi-automatic a automatic weapon. And so bump stocks were removed after the horrific outcome of that shooting in Las Vegas at a country music festival. And there are very powerful special interests that have unwound those and went through the courts to prevent even a common sense approach like that. So yes, I think it is an important step. But this isn't something that Trump can just. I haven't read the full aspect of what Bondi and stuff were doing.
I haven't seen the entire bill myself.
I was going to say, I believe this needs to be an act of Congress. This isn't something that you can just wave a wand and do, but it needs to be all parties
these
getting
days,
together.
you don't know.
Well, that's the thing, though, is
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things that are being done unilaterally like that are going to see problems in the courts. And if we can have stakeholders involved, both Republican and Democratic members of Congress, pass this and send it to the president and have, an attorney general that can enforce this, that would be a huge step in addressing gun violence in the nation.
I'll call it like I see it. I disagree with the president on most things, but on this one particular issue on sensible gun reform, I think it's the right thing. I'm just struck and saddened that it takes Donald Trump to say the same thing that Vice President Harris and Tony Evers say before Republicans will get on board with it. And it is a
there are those special interests, though, that are going to go and still say, even though it is
that's what I'm waiting for,
Senate,
because I haven't looked a lot. I saw this yesterday. I haven't looked a lot. I haven't seen that yet, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, did they consult the NRA on this?
Yeah, well, we'll see. And remember, for those that might not be regular listeners, I'm a guy who owns half a dozen firearms myself, was a longtime gun deer hunter. I don't really that much anymore. I still occasionally hunt birds, pheasant, and turkeys, and I believe in ownership of guns. I also believe in sensible gun reform like this, like red flag laws, like waiting periods, like background checks. And last check, keep me honest, Luke, I think in the Marquette Law School poll here in Wisconsin, most Wisconsinites support those things I just said as well.
Overwhelming majority of Wisconsinites,
And these are all people like me who are either hunt a lot more than me or hunt occasionally like I do, or just like to go out and skeet shoot or clay pigeon or whatever. I mean, as the governor said in his State of the State, hunting, trapping, fishing, these are traditions in Wisconsin that should be maintained and preserved. And nobody is talking about doing away with those, whether they're talking about sensible reforms like President Trump and Pam Bondi are talking about there.
Yeah.
So maybe, you never know. There might be an occasional ray of sunlight where something actually gets done. And I guess in these days, we'll take it when we keep it. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this one, Luke, but I want to just mention it quickly as we continue to kind of suss out what's happening in D.C. with Musk and Trump and how this affects us in Wisconsin. There's a great piece, and these folks, the Badger Herald, I mean, these are student journalists, but boy, have they got a program there and do some great journalistic work.
Yeah.
And folks at the Badger Herald, you can find it at badgerherald.com. The story, U.S. Department of Education cuts funding for UW Teacher Training Partnership with Milwaukee Public Schools. The Trump administration cancels over $600 million in teacher quality partnership grants at universities across the country, including UW. You can read the entire story here. I'll just read you a couple of lines. Luke, get your take on this. It says the partnership is not a DEI program and is not focused on any particular identity group, but its grant proposal articulated the program's goals of recruiting from as diverse a group of applicants as possible, which could have been perceived as contradicting the Education Department's current interpretation of discrimination, I'll use the quote unquote, which includes the targeting of specific groups in hiring. Says terminations like these threaten to make people feel like the field of special education has the potential to be undermined. And the person being interviewed says she's telling students that regardless of whatever changes are in the education department, there will always be students with disabilities who need additional support and specialized instruction. To put it down in layman's terms, what this program did was provide funds to help educate people to be special education teachers, which we are in dire need of in this state. And now $600 million being cut for that program just in Wisconsin for UW by the Trump administration.
Yeah, and this is why, folks, the term audit should not be used at all from this Department of quote unquote government efficiency. Like if an audit was being conducted, programs like this wouldn't be cut.
Correct.
You would see a program like this and be like, yes, this is a good thing for special education students throughout school districts in the entire country, but specifically also here in Milwaukee Public Schools, being able to have the resources and recruitment of teachers. And I will push back too, if the aspect of, it's an anti-DEI, anti-diversity, equity, inclusion. It is important to be able to recruit teachers, not just for special education, but teachers as a whole from the diverse swath of the state of Wisconsin and the entire country. When you see the teacher shortage that we have, it is one way to be able to address that is also having more teachers that look like more students. If you only have teachers that look like white males or white women, you have an entire education system that are not going to be there for Black individuals, for Native populations, for Asian populations. Like if you don't see somebody in the career that looks like you, it is one of those burdens that will keep you or prevent you from even thinking about going down the path of teaching. If you don't see yourself in being able to be in that future role, it is a shooting yourself in the foot problem when you try to, even in the name of something like that, cut programs like this, because it is just not beneficial to solving the real problems that our communities face.
To your point, Luke, if people wonder, well, does that work? Our good friend and now departed friend, former state Senate Majority Leader Senator Tim Cullen of Janesville, was on this program most recently in September before he passed away in December, and talking about exactly this foundation that he has set up where he offers full ride scholarships to about a dozen students, high school kids from Rock County to go into education. And the only requirement is they come back to a school district in Rock County and teach, I think Zommers, keep me honest, was 3 or 5 years. I can't remember which.
I believe 3, but I may also be incorrectly remembering.
In any case, Senator Cullen mentioned exactly what you did, Luke, that so many of the people that take advantage of these are minority students that come back and teach, and the success rate has been phenomenal with people in these schools in Beloit and Janesville saying it's so refreshing to have a teacher that looks like me and has had those same experiences.
Yep.
Come on back, a little rambling with Luke Mathers. Not rambling, but tangents, I guess, with Luke Mathers on the other side. Talking about the SEC and Big Ten and what's grinding Lukester's gears. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show, the Civic Media. Ready to go.
Anything you want to hear, Luke?
Dealer's choice. Ripe's coming to the Orpheum or somewhere here in Madison in April. And got to find out if I'm getting tickets.
GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something.
Cam, that's a good point. I mean, Kelly wrote the story specifically. I think, I invite you to stick around. I think it'll be made clear. I think part of Kelly's reporting is that, as we talk about in the show a lot, that you have people in high-profile sports and not so profile sports like track, and they come here and they get NIL deals and they get endorsement deals. And she, in her reporting, has brought to us and say, look, this all adds up to an enormous amount of mental stress. And yes, it's not just athletes. It is, campus-wide or with all students. But I think too often we as fans, look at my chest right now, we like to go to the games.
His eyes are up there.
Right? We like to rah. But we don't always think about what these individuals are facing.
Well, and that's the thing about this next story, too, is there's enough money to go around for a super league.
Right.
There should be enough money for resources for the actual students.
Yeah, 100%.
But what do you believe in?
How long is this clip, Summers? I'm not sure what the whole thing. Yeah, we won't take the whole thing. We'll start out because he repeats himself. So we'll kind of get once I feel like the main thing is there, I'll give you the highs.
With David J. Frank, Wisconsin's award-winning landscape management company for 65 years. You've seen their beautiful work at Hilldale Shopping Center, from expert lawn care to seasonal flower beds.
America's national parks, one park at a time. Camping in the woods and listening to this Spotify playlist. Luke Mathers.
Yeah, Spotify's important while we're out there. You got to download that playlist before you get offline. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Because you can't get service out there in other places.
Some places. But we knocked out four at a time. It wasn't one at a time this time.
But let's get off a quick tangent here. I'm a big believer when I go to a hike like that, to a national park, into the woods along a lake, I ain't going to put on my old earbuds, iPod buds, whatever they're called, because I want to hear the natural sound of the wind and, the loons. Like on Golden Pond. I want nature, Luke. Do you put the earbuds in when you hike?
No.
Good.
If I usually earbuds are reserved for if I'm doing a workout or something like that. Right. But if I'm out in nature, I'm trying to take in the nature, and I'm usually trying to get away from this thing.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I'm fine with the phone being off for most instances when I'm gone.
We're here with Luke Mathers on a Tuesday Tangents with Lukester. I want to just play a part of this cut. Came out yesterday from a podcaster out in the Pac-12 or whatever, Pac-2 right now. It's called The Monty Show, and this guy's legit. He's some legit reporting, and he has a report here that's kind of being talked about at other places, YahooSports.com and other places, that the SEC and the Big Ten, of course, of which the Badgers are a part of, are trying to do a coup of sorts and try to create a super league when it comes to football. Here's a little bit of the reporting by The Monty Show.
Absolute bombshell this afternoon coming out of the SEC and the Big Ten, as multiple sources have now confirmed to me that the Big Ten and the SEC are working on an expansion model to create a super league by expanding with the Big 12 and the ACC. Sources also confirmed to me that there is absolutely room for top-tier G5 programs to be included in this incarnation of a super league that the Big Ten and the SEC have had, I am told, substantive conversations about. And I am told this program has real momentum. It is backed by private equity because it is going to create bedlam in college football. If you are going to the Big 12 and the ACC and you are trying to pry, programs out of those conferences. It's going to be expensive. We already know that the Big 12 and the ACC and the Mountain West, amongst others, use a very similar grant of rights that is ironclad and very difficult to get out of, as Clemson and Florida State have learned the hard way. But
that's the Monty Show on YouTube channel. They're a reporter out of the former Pac-12, now the Pac-2, just Washington State and Oregon State. So far, although I think for next year they've added some other universities to it.
Yeah, it's not really Power 5.
No,
It's
not
more Power 4.5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Luke, what do you make of this? Again, it's not just the Monty Show. Other places are reporting this, that private talks are underway by the Big Ten and the SEC to break away from the NCAA, at least for football, and to create this super league in which they may take select schools from the Big 12 and the ACC as well and divide those up. And this big money now is behind this.
Yeah, I don't think it's there's a lot of money in sports. Like there is so much money.
A lot of money.
And so for the longest time, the dirty little secret was like, oh, whether or not players got paid underneath the table to, come and do recruitment. And then we had a transfer portal where, you had to sit out a year of eligibility if you wanted to change schools. And now it is truly like the wild, wild west. Like we've already seen kind of a super league get formed here with the Big Ten because there's
18.
Yeah. I was trying to do the quick math. I was like, how many we had last. And so like we already have kind of this super league. We saw the realignment that took place last year. You already see the college football playoffs changing their model away from just 4 teams to expand that playoff. It led to some interesting games, but again, it ate into more of the television broadcast times because you went further and further of season. You had more games to play. You had more ad revenue to sell, or commercial space in those games to sell to make revenue. And so it is a lot of money. I don't, without some proper guide rails though, it just does not sound like a good idea to me. Like my knee-jerk reaction is just like this is just for boosters and TV rights deals and a lot of money to be made selling the Ozempic ads and Dorito ads and all the insurance ads. And it's just like, please, just, I don't think it's needed. It's just not necessary.
Minute and a half to almost 2 minutes. What do you want to do? Grinding gears or talk about the Badgers?
Well,
your choice.
It was a pretty grinding of the gears to throw away that game. Letting the Ducks.
You're talking about the Oregon Ducks coming into Wisconsin over the weekend and beating them after Wisconsin had a 17-point lead.
Yeah, you heard like the chatter around town was, this could be a Final Four team if they beat Illinois tonight.
They still could, I think.
Yeah, I know. But it was, the conversation was when Illinois came to town, or we went to Champaign. I forget which one it was.
They came here.
And we beat Illinois. And it was like, if we can, really have a good show, we beat Illinois by 21 points or something like that.
They had the flu, but yes.
Still, they put up like 95.
Yeah,
which
I'm not trying to take away the win. I'm just saying Illinois was not at full strength.
And so you all of a sudden
have
this game. You have this game where Badgers were up by what, 17 points?
Yep.
And they find a way to squander that lead. And Greg Gard said it best, I think, himself. He said, we beat ourselves this weekend. And they hadn't done that all season. And so the question becomes whether or not they can prevent any bad breaks like that throughout the March Madness that is about to be upon us, or if this is all of a sudden, a lingering sign of what's to come, where they're one bad break from a really early exit from the tournament.
Badgers take on Washington tonight. Broadcast starts at select Civic Media stations and for free on the Civic Media app at 7 p.m. tonight. Big test, Luke's going to be at the Breslin Center at Michigan State here in a week or so.
Yep, next Wednesday, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. All right, thank you, Luke. So we appreciate you. Have a good day. Come on back. What's worse? And Kelly Meyerhoff for an hour 2 on the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Tuesday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Adios. He says goodbye. He's saying goodbye. Piecing out. He's literally piecing out.
Hour number 2, the National Wildlife Federation. What the Trump
All right,
administration is going to do to conservation effort. Don't miss it.
Matt Nair on air. Weekday mornings at 11.
Matt Nair on air. Oh, Randy Manor is here.
What can you do about this? Focus on what you can impact. find the courage to speak up to your elected officials.
All right, we got What's
If
Worse,
you
everybody,
are
coming up.
silent, then
We'll also talk
your
about Joanne
elected official
Fabrics
at the
going out of
local,
business.
state,
Now, I know
Are
that.
they really?
Yes, I know that
think you
for some
completely
people, you're like,
agree
what?
with what
It's a big
you're
deal for a
doing.
lot of
It
people.
is.
Yeah.
It is. My mom's going to be very upset.
McNair on air, weekdays at 11 on 92.7 WMDX and the Civic Media app. Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's
All right,
all
right
on
back,
your
everybody.
local Civic
Stay
Media
with us.
radio
Don't go
station
anywhere.
or the
Be an
Civic
exciting
Media
hour
app.
two. I promise.
This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. House Speaker Mike Johnson.
David New Berlin
facing an
texting
uphill
in, the Big
battle
Ten
on a
should be
budget
called the
test
Big
vote
18.
today
Don't
to
even get me
raise
started.
and GOP
I once nearly
majority
sliced off my own finger because I was yelling about how stupid sports conference names are while I was trying to slice some cheese.
Would tee up an expansion of the expiring Trump tax cuts. Trouble for Republicans is the pay-for provisions that aim to
The
cut
scar
up
is
to $2
mostly
trillion
gone. I guess
from
I
the
didn't
Social
nearly
Safety
slice
Net
my finger
programs.
off,
Despite
but
formal denials
only
from
because it was a
GOP
very
leadership,
sharp
many
knife.
fear that
So
Medicaid would bear the brunt of
I
the
didn't
cuts.
feel the cut at
Already
first,
3
and then it started
Republicans
bleeding.
have
I'm like,
publicly vowed to
there is
vote
blood
no
on my
the budget
cheese.
plan,
Oh
and that's
yeah,
enough to
this
kill
is
it.
bad.
Pope Francis battling pneumonia remains in critical but stable condition at a Rome hospital, according to the Vatican, with no new respiratory episodes today. Another jump in measles cases in West Texas. The state health department says they've recorded 34 more cases since last Friday. There are now 124 cases linked to the outbreak. Health officials say most are children or teens. This is ABC News.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. An error in one of the first ads in the state Supreme Court race after Elon Musk's group got involved. He's the major donor behind Building America's Future, which will spend $1.6 million in supporting conservative Brad Schimmel over liberal Susan Crawford. One of their first ads says, quote, Susan Crawford is wrong for Wisconsin, end quote, with a photo of her. But there's one big problem. It's the wrong Susan Crawford. The one they included in their ad, Susan P. Crawford, is a law professor at Harvard. And when you look up Susan Crawford on Wikipedia, you end up on the professor's page and you find that photo. Crawford's campaign called it shameful and a fraud and said, quote, Wisconsinites shouldn't trust a single thing from these guys, end quote. Now, this comes after another ad issue a few weeks ago, where the Schimmel campaign ran a spot with an edited photo of Susan Crawford that turned her smile into a scowl. The Schimmel campaign admitted the photo was edited. And here in Wisconsin, there's a special license plate you can get that helps spay and neuter efforts. Here's Lisa Hale.
In 2024, The Fix Is In, a 100% volunteer nonprofit, helped fund nearly 700 spay and neuter surgeries for outdoor cats. Board President Bree Richardson says purchasing
Dave, no need to
COP
be
license
sorry.
plate is
It's
a simple
just
but impactful way to
if you
support animal
are
welfare
naming
and curb
something on,
overpopulation. The organization says a single unspayed
you shouldn't
female cat
name
could easily
something
give birth
with so
to
much
around
reach
60
based on
kittens within
mutable
5
characteristics.
years. For outdoor cats,
If you were to call
spaying
it
and
the
neutering
Northeast
is
Conference
especially
and it's in the
critical.
Northeast,
Only
great.
25%
But calling it the
of
Big
kittens
Ten
survive
because there's
through
10 teams in it,
adulthood,
with the
many
amount of
facing
money in sports,
starvation,
that's
disease,
extremely
or
short-sighted because there's no way you're not foreseeing more people buying their way in.
At civicmedia.us
Like you can't,
for
if you call it the Big Ten, you got to
I'm
stick with
Savannah
10 teams in it,
Tomei
or else it's just
This is
confusing.
92.7 WMDX News.
It'd be like if we named the Todd Allbaugh show 8 to 11 with Todd, because that's something that the time the show is on can change. So that would be stupid. Now we'd be 8 to 11 at Todd, but it's at noon.
Aaron's raging about his disgust and disdain with conference names.
It's so illogical to name it on mutable
It's tradition.
characteristics.
It's tradition.
It's a stupid-ass tradition.
It's a tradition. Big Ten. I mean, look at the Pac-12. They tried this. They tried this because it used to be the Big Ten and the Pac-10, and then they expanded to 12. So they decided to change it to 12.
Well, they shouldn't have named it the Pac-10.
And then they increased it to 14. And then, so I mean, once you just got to stick with the original title, the Big Ten.
Well, I'm just saying the original titles should not have been numbers.
Well, because when it was created, they never really envisioned.
Well, then that was short-sighted because there's so much money in sports, it will change.
Wow, Zommers is very salty today.
enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup. at
Why does it make me so mad?
civicmedia.us.
I don't know.
The Civic Media app.
Sunny and still unseasonably warm today with high temperatures reaching the upper 40s. Got rain rolling in overnight tonight and lingering through early tomorrow morning and leaving us with a mostly cloudy day, but still mild with highs in the mid-40s. And how about another 50-degree day possible on Friday? I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Right now, it's 49.
Blind Shot Social Club, a perfect blend of cool, casual dining, indoor golf with space for events, craft cocktails, and non-alcoholic drinks too. A hidden gem on Madison's East Side. Blind Shot Social Club, open to everyone. BlindShotSocialClub.com. Listen to the John and Gordy Show weekdays right here on WMDX, sponsored by Verlo Mattress. Sleep better, dream bigger on a handcrafted, locally made mattress. Find them on Madison's East and West Side or online at Verlo.com.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
What celebrity would you like to hug? It's International Hug Day. I wouldn't say Josh Brolin is like my favorite actor, but he's got like a quiet macho-ness to him. Actor Glenn Morshower joins us now.
My self-esteem was jolted when you did not mention me as your hugging preference.
I didn't want to rush it.
About
I just
30
want to
seconds.
see how. Let's just dip our toes in.
Thank you.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer. It is 6 past the hour of 1 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 of the big program. It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Coming up a little bit later on in the hour at 1:30. You're not going to want to miss this. I read this story yesterday, and I became emotional. And I texted Kelly Meyerhofer, the reporter, and I said, would you be willing to come on the show tomorrow and talk about this? And she is so gracious with her time, and she said, absolutely. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reporter Kelly Meyerhofer will be here after the news at 12:30 with a very emotional and important story.
1:30.
Pardon me, 1:30. Thank you very much, Sommers. At 1:30 with a very emotional and important story, great reporting on what college athletes, and yes, to an earlier texter's point, I understand that it's not just athletes, it's all of us, quite frankly. But Kelly reported this on the lens of Sarah Schulze, who died by suicide in 2022. She was a runner at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And Kelly puts together this great piece, this great reporting on mental health in college athletes, what's being done about it. And the ending is powerful. Looking forward to having Kelly on here at the bottom of the hour. So here's the deal, Zommers. I went out to use the facilities over the break, and I took my CBS mug that I've had with me since 1988, and I went out in the old water cooler to get water, and it's sitting on the other side of the studio glass. I feel like I feel like a gorilla. I can see the banana, but I can't get to it. So
would you like me to go grab it?
No. I think you should dial up some street music, and because people can't. So we can let's take a look at the street cam. Hopefully it's working. Is it working? We'll have a shot.
Let's find out.
Let's find out. Let's go to the street cam here on State Street in downtown Madison. Well, there's a couple of cars. All right, play a little music here, and you can do the play-by-play. I'm going to step out and get my water. I'll be right back.
Here on State Street in Madison, Wisconsin, we see several cars rounding the corner, and it looks like somebody is approaching the crosswalk. You know, it's a pretty sunny day here in Madison, much warmer than it has been as of late. I can't tell you much about the bustling downtown because there's really just a few people walking across the street right now. I imagine most people are still working. They might be at lunch. And I've not seen any bikers breaking the law, so there's that.
There's that. Thank you, Aaron. That's your downtown Madison traffic and walking report here in beautiful downtown Madison. This shot's a little low on the Sam Davidson street cam. Now, here I am. Here, this mug, and I shouldn't even say it because it means I'm going to drop it and break it. I got this back in 1988 when I visited New York City. And this ties into what's worse. Visited New York City the first time in 1988, a week before I graduated high school. And we went to my friend Carrie Anderson, now Carrie Anderson Pink, and I went to, because I was working for WRCO, the CBS affiliate in Richland Center, which is now part of Civic Media. And went to the CBS headquarters, and at the CBS store, I got this beautiful CBS News mug.
It is a very nice mug. It's such a clean design.
It's a clean design, classic news type design, black and white.
Normal 12-ounce size coffee cup.
Yep, with the old CBSI logo right there for those watching on the stream. And somehow in all my moves, I've managed not to break this. So I used it back in the day when I worked in radio, and here I am back on the air all these years later.
I will say, when you said my CBS mug, my first thought was, oh no, did it break? But then you were so calm. I was like, there's no way. There's no way it broke. He'd be much more upset.
And remember, as Letterman likes to say, anytime you hear or see me, your radio and streaming host, take a sip of a beverage, it's the ideal time for you, the home listener, watcher, to have a beverage as well. So here we go. All right, we're set to go. It's 10 minutes past the hour of 1 o'clock. Before we do what's worse, and this ties in. According to Wallet Hub, they have researched the hardest working cities in America. And guess what, Zommers? Wisconsin does not have a hard-working city. According to Wallet Hub. Now, well, just listen. The rating looked at an average work week hour, the employment rate, the share of households where no adults work. The share of households where no adults work. Share of workers leaving vacation time unused, PTO. And the number of people between 16 and 24 who are neither in school nor working. The highest scoring city in Wisconsin is Milwaukee at 83rd place.
Wow.
We know Milwaukee is a great city. They're a hardworking city. Well, guess what? I say good. Because it's not a badge of honor to not use earned vacation days. This is true. If you earn PTO, use them. I don't, but you should. And if you live in a household with no adults who work, you're probably retired. And if you
on disability or something.
Or that. And if you figured out a way to retire early, hey, more power to you. This is one rating where not winning is just fine with me. Wisconsinites are, in fact, hardworking, I believe. I know that. I know that because I see it. I travel the state. Other cities, maybe not so much. All right, let's go. Time once again for What's Worse. Here we go.
This or that, this or that. Then, of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Time once again for What's Worse. No prize money involved, nothing to give away, but it is your chance to be heard across statewide radio, all 11 news, talk, sports stations on the Civic Media Radio Network, the largest privately owned radio network in Wisconsin. No better way to get your word, your advertising out than right here on Civic Media. Go to civicmedia.us and find out how to join our team. We would love to have you. All right, Zommers, timely indeed. As Mike Lucas likes to say, cities. We're talking about hardworking cities there. Well, here now in the news, if you've been watching this, a couple of big city mayors, both happen to be Democrats in some hot water. First of all, you got this guy, Eric Adams, in New York City, who was indicted on very severe charges of taking money into the table and all this kind of stuff. Well, he's made a deal with Donald Trump, allegedly, because Trump's attorney generals and whatnot, or New York City there, the Justice Department, is saying, oh, no, we're going to put those charges on hold. We're not going to completely get rid of them. But if you don't do what we want in terms of getting rid of undocumented folks, we'll throw you back in the clink. And so you got Eric Adams, who's snuggling up to Trump over there. And then on the other side of the country, out in Los Angeles, you've got Karen Bass. Now, she's a piece of work. Here now, we found out yesterday from CBS, speaking of CBS, that Mayor Bass went on a vacation, kind of a quasi-work trip vacation, to Ghana, which, of course, if you know your geography, is right next to Rio. I'm just kidding. That's an old joke. But she went over to Ghana and on this trip, and she knew, according to CBS, that the weather conditions were ripe for a major fire, but yet she went anyway. She was out of town. The fire chief there in LA was also a woman. And after the fires now here this week, Mayor Bass in Los Angeles, instead of taking the responsibility, she fires the fire chief. Says it's her fault for not calling out more firefighters. Well, now CBS finds out yesterday that the ordinance in Los Angeles said that responsibility, according to law, guess where that lands? With the mayor. So exactly. So you got two people here, Eric Adams in New York City or Karen Bass in Los Angeles. So the question finally to get to it, what's worse, New York City or Los Angeles? What's worse, New York City or Los Angeles? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. You don't have it, you say? Well, easy enough to get. Simply go to your app store on your Apple or Android device. Type in Civic in the search bar, CIVIC, Media, Civic Media. It'll pop up, little CM logo. Click on that. It'll download in less than a minute. It is free, gratis, no dinero. Won't cost you a dime. Because now you got to say dime because pennies are on their way out. It's what Gail King at CBS calls a deal. The Civic Media app, you can listen to the Badger game tonight for free on it. There is rumor that there is a hot new contest coming up soon, and the only way you're going to be able to enter is through the Civic Media app. So do yourself a favor, download the Civic Media app right now. What's worse, New York or Los Angeles? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Have you been to both cities?
I've been to neither.
Neither, really? And you've done quite a bit of traveling, or at least relative amount.
Not really. I've traveled around Wisconsin. I've been to.
Well, okay.
I've only really been to a few states, and then England. So no, I'd like to do more traveling. I've been to Colorado. I've been to all the neighboring states. Wait, maybe I might have been to all the neighboring states.
You were in Colorado first, so you don't remember.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Our own Casper, great engineer here at Civic in Madison, says L.A. is worse. Not even a contest. L.A. is awful. The driving alone makes me never want to go there ever again.
I have to say, as somebody who has not been to either, that's a big indicator for me, is that it takes you an hour plus to get anywhere in L.A., whereas in New York, you can hop on a train.
Very true. Matt in Middleton, listening on WMDX, says New York is worse by far. Giant rats and the orange menace has a stench all over it. LA is wonderful and some of the best food ever.
That's a good point.
Dana, listening in La Crosse, says Adams is straight on corrupt. Bass is just passing the buck. New York is worse. All right. What's worse?
Bass is passing the buck, but people died. So
that's very true. What's worse, New York or Los Angeles? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. I have been to both cities. I can tell you I enjoy both cities. They both offer spectacular things. Each of them have their challenges, like any city. But we'll reveal what Zommers and I think might be worse. What's worse on the other side of the break, so stay with us for that. Kelly Meyerhofer with a great story at the bottom of the hour. So stay with us, much more ahead. What's worse, New York or L.A. on the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Wisconsin's real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Attention. If you suffer from consistent pain in your joints caused by arthritis, overuse, or injury, you may be a candidate for a revolutionary therapy that could revitalize damaged tissue. This approach can provide long-lasting relief from pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, and other joints with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. To find out if you're a viable candidate, you may request a free consultation from QC Kinetics by calling 608-384-0897. Instead of masking the symptoms, it goes to
I'm literally going to get my
problem
hearing
to resolve it
tested
at its
tonight.
source. Already
this
used
afternoon.
by thousands of
Follow up
satisfied
to my
patients
surgery.
nationwide. This joint pain therapy is available right now to the public, but only for qualified candidates. Again, to find out if you're a viable candidate for this therapy, you may request a free consultation by calling QC Kinetics at 608-384-0897. That's 608-384-0897.
Have you been to Sugar River Pizza in Sun Prairie yet?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I know. I love the pizza.
Pizza is ridiculous. That crust.
Right, and they have
48 beers on tap and a great selection of wine.
That's fantastic.
Not only
How about,
is
yeah,
the
we
restaurant
dial up a little
gorgeous,
New York by
the
Frank
giant
Sinatra.
windows that open, and they won a Best of Madison Gold Award this year.
I love Sugar River
Pizza on Cabela Drive in Sun Prairie.
You took the words right out of my
mouth.
Yep. SugarRiverPizza.com.
Oh, so you have heard of it.
Finding the special healthcare resources families need just got easier. Wisconsin Wayfinder, Children's Resource Network, helps kids with delays, disabilities, special healthcare needs, and mental health.
Blue Eyes. Sing it, Frank.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 past the hour of 1 o'clock on Tuesday, February 25th. Zombers on the board, dialing up a little Frank Sinatra, chairman of the board. Classic. Is there a more recognizable American tune, Zombers, than New York, New York?
Yankee Doodle.
Yankee Doodle Dandy, maybe, yeah.
Or like the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh,
but,
sure.
you know, if it's in good company.
It's got to be the top five. Asking you a question here. Don't forget, coming up after the bottom of the hour break, a very, very important interview. More of a story discussion with great reporter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Kelly Meyerhofer. Great stories she wrote on mental health and UW athletics. Right now, the lighter side to the show, asking, as we do every day, what's worse? And you can take, we laid out the two mayors, Eric Adams in New York and Karen Bass in Los Angeles, but take it however you want. And I've been to both. I like parts of both cities. But what's worse, New York or Los Angeles? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. You could also text us for free on the Civic Media app. Our ongoing contributor and friend, Jeff Perry, says, strictly speaking musically, L.A. is worse. Sinatra's New York, New York versus Randy Newman, I Love L.A., no contest.
And on a similar note, Brian in Milwaukee says L.A. is worse. New York has Broadway, but Wisconsin reigns supreme.
well, there you go.
I mean, Broadway and Sinatra and everything. Like, yeah,
Right.
New York has some good music.
Also, Dana I guess we did Dana's in lacrosse already. Eric, listening on WMDX in Madison, says it's not even a discussion. New York is the best city on the planet. Karina, listening in Milwaukee, getting the job done, driving around there. Keep her safe, Karina. Listening on WAUK, says Los Angeles is worse. You just read Brian's there in Milwaukee. Jack in Merrimack, listening via WAUK, says the situation in New York is much worse, in my opinion. Not only is the mayor probably guilty of corruption, but another criminal is essentially blackmailing him to enforce his dictates. Last I heard, blackmail is unlawful too. Jack and Merrimack. Thanks, Jack. Always appreciate you. What's worse, New York or Los Angeles? 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. I've probably been to LA more than New York. I spent more time in Los Angeles. I'm going to get very nuanced with my answer. Because the people are saying the driving in Los Angeles, yes. I mean, I think if you live there or visit enough, it's just a given. Not always, but most times, if you have to drive any amount of distance for groceries or to make a Target run, whatever it is, if you have to get outside of your neighborhood beyond 7, 8, 10 blocks, it's an hour. It's an hour to anything in Los Angeles. It just is. If you have to get on one of the LA freeways to go somewhere, you might as well just say it's going to be an hour to anywhere. Sometimes longer, especially if you go during rush hour. Also, I mean, I've been out to the Rose Bowl a handful of times. Spent time at the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles. Downtown LA is okay. I guess in fairness, I haven't spent as much time in downtown LA as I have in Manhattan, New York. But I would say that there's a lot more things to do in New York City, whether it's Manhattan or whether it's in Brooklyn or whether it's in Queens, than right downtown Los Angeles. Now, the greater Los Angeles area, Downey, other places I've been. Pasadena, I love Pasadena, but that's a suburb of LA, right? So, but just to get around in terms of transportation, like to get from the LaGuardia Airport to Brooklyn or Manhattan, you grab a cab or grab a train. It's not that big of a deal. As you said, Zommers, you get on a train and you go into Manhattan if you want. Los Angeles, it's a bigger deal. So my answer is probably going to be, if I had to choose, I'd say the city of Los Angeles proper is worse than the city of New York proper. But I love the Los Angeles area. There's a lot of good people out there. Maybe a lot of good people in both places, right? What's worse, New York or Los Angeles? Conrad, the great Conrad, by the way, producer of Nightlight with Pete Schwaba and Conrad. I think we should add that on. It should be Nightlight with Pete Schwaba and Con.
He also is there.
Yes, he's there. Zomer says, why isn't it called the Todd Allbaugh Show with Zomers then? Conrad in Green Bay, listening on our great station, WGBW, says, talking about basketball this year, I'll take the Knicks over the Lakers this year. LA Clippers are just fighting to stay above 500. Well, there you go. That's a whole other genre, sports and basketball between the two cities. I mean, the Knicks haven't been legit in forever, right?
No, I'm not sure.
And I think they're like in Brooklyn now. They're not really in New York City proper anymore, even though Brooklyn's a borough. I get it. By the way, tune in tonight, 6 until 8, Pete Schwaba and Nightlight, along with the great Conrad. It is a great program. They've had some great shows on lately, actors, getting ready to talk about the Academy Awards. Conrad, this is for you and Zommers. Let's figure out a day soon here to get Pete on the program. We need to have Pete on the show to talk about the Oscars. All right. WMDX, a listener there saying Los Angeles as a city is worse, but Adams is the worst mayor. New York City itself is fantastic. Walk or mass transit is the best way to get around. People are way more interesting. I've seen some pretty interesting people in Los Angeles.
People are weird everywhere, man.
I wouldn't say weird. I would just say
but that's not necessarily an insult.
Yeah, no. Normally the smog, the pollution is worse in LA, I think, when I've traveled up there. But the sunsets are spectacular. I mean, we did the show, from our friend Kelly Call's a bar, the sports bar down there, and restaurant, the Underground. By the way, when you're in Hermosa Beach, stop at the Underground. And Hermosa Beach is just, my God, that's beautiful out there. And everybody is beautiful in Hermosa Beach. You have good food, you're rollerblading, you're jogging, you're in the ocean, you're playing volleyball. So there it is. Amers, do you want to? What's worse?
I think I gotta say, I've never been to either, but I'm gonna base this almost entirely on transportation and weather, and I'm gonna say LA is worse.
All right, that's how we play What's Worse. Come on back. Kelly Meyerhofer on the other side, talking about mental health. Join us on the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. This is your local civic media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it
Yep,
at
that's definitely what won.
civicmedia.us.
The people have decided that LA is worse.
LA is worse.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Madison's Southside Elementary officially has its new name. We've been following this story for months.
And remember, the
Southside
website for the
East
Milwaukee
Badger
Journal
Road was
Sentinel
built
is
a couple years ago in a
jsonline.com.
brand new building, and the name was supposed to be
I'll put it on the
temporary.
screen, too.
More than 70% of students identify as Black or Latino, and almost 3/4 there face economic
jsonline.com, right?
disadvantages. The Madison
Yes, that's
Metropolitan
correct.
School District has rules that specify what or who schools can be named after. It started with 175 submissions, including Ada Deer, the first Native American woman in Wisconsin to run for Congress. Governor Tony Evers even sent a letter recommending they name the school after Shirley Abramson, Wisconsin's first woman on the Supreme Court. But they got the most submissions to name it after Lori Mann Carey, and that's what won. Mann Carey was a teacher and advocate who went above and beyond for kids in the district, especially those facing barriers. She started an after-school program at West High School, and she and her siblings created the Mann Educational Opportunity Fund more than 30 years ago in honor of their parents, a Black couple who championed equitable education
Just
for
made
all.
my wife famous.
The fund
What did
supports
we do,
students,
Bill?
especially
What did we
students
do
of
to make
color,
her
reach
famous?
their full potential. Their students have a
Yeah, it looks like Kelly Meyerhofer is getting set up.
Lori was known as a village mother, there to help any child she could. Her son, Vince Carey.
People need to be highlighted who give.
There she is. Kelly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Todd?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for making time for us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I just this story is just so powerful to me, and one of the things that I've said on the air and off this year that I really want to spend more time, more shows on mental health, because whenever we've done stories on this or discussions, we get so much feedback and engagement, and oftentimes from people that you might not always stereotypically think. We've had guys, middle-aged men like me, calling in, getting very emotional just about how tough it is for them. And I think it's just one of those things that we don't talk enough about as a society. I certainly don't talk enough about it on the show. So I just really appreciate this story.
Completely agree.
How long did you, well, we'll get into a little bit, but how long did you work on this story before it went to a print?
Well, I first interviewed the family in like October of 2023. And I was planning to do the story then, and then like late 2023 is when like the UW's DEI deal with the legislature kind of blew up, and the Joe Gao story broke. And so I kind of had to put it on the back burner. And so, I mean, I returned to the mom again, like in December of last year, and was working on it for most of January.
It's just, I really hope that whoever does it, you or the folks at the Journal Sentinel, I really hope that this is submitted for recognition, because it's truly some of the best journalism I've read in a long, long time.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'll just kind of talk about it like this and kind of in a larger scope to start with. And I mean, I've got things highlighted, so we'll just kind of go through it in order if you want to do it that way. And we can break away from the story and kind of suss out some things that maybe didn't get in the story that you think are important as well.
Okay.
About a minute or so left here.
And the price of gasoline, which is extraordinary, but great show, and I would really recommend going back to the Trump Golf Tracker, because what better way to keep
Sarah's
track of the
last name,
man?
is it Scholz? Is that how you pronounce it, or Scholz?
Scholz. Sarah Scholz.
All right, no, E is silent. All right, Scholz. All right, thank you.
You know, Harvey, the seemingly purposeful no action. What's your sense on the leadership in the Dem Party right now, Harvey?
I'm ashamed of them. What did Trump have on all these people?
Yeah, right.
That we get this kind of silence. Will the Democratic leadership figure out that it's their task to start articulating?
All right, 30 seconds.
Thank you. may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. And it's 34 minutes now past the hour of 1 o'clock on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Glad to have you along. Zommers on the board. Really hope that people stay with us for this next half hour. This is an important topic, as we were talking before we came back to break here, from break. I know every time that we've talked about mental health issues on this show, we get a tremendous amount of engagement, meaning people text in or call in or just send us messages. This is something that I've pledged to do more of on this show this year. And I cannot thank our next guest for being here enough, making time for us. She is Kelly Meyerhofer, the higher education reporter, among her other beats at the great Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. You can also find her work on JS Online. J as in journal, S as in sentinel, online.com, jsonline.com. Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time for us, and welcome back to the show.
I'm happy to be here, Todd.
We are so happy to be here because this is a tough subject, but you handle it so well. And this is one of the reasons why I so much believe in local journalism and people who are based here in Wisconsin. And let's get into it. This is a story of Sarah Scholes, who was a runner at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but she was also a daughter. She was a family member. She was a friend. She was a teammate. She died by suicide in 2022 while a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And you have written this story that was published yesterday in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about her mental health in general with college athletes. What led you, what made you as a reporter say, I want to dig into this, or there has to be something more here? What was the initial impetus for doing this story?
I mean, I remember when the story broke, like the spring of 2022, her family sort of announced that she had died by suicide. And at the time, there were several other, high-profile college athletes who had died by suicide. I think there was 5 that spring in college. And there was a lot of national stories about it. And at the time, I was busy with some other stuff, but it seemed like something to dig into more specifically about her circumstances and what happened. So it was something I knew I always wanted to look into. And it was just a matter of finding the time to approach it thoughtfully. And in hindsight, I think having, looking at it a few years after the fact, gave her family and teammates time to process it and think about it a bit more. I think it was actually much more powerful to look back as opposed to reporting in the moment.
I think I think obviously you're right, because you really get in depth with this. And I guess let's just start in order of your writing. And you start out at a track meet, the Nutticombe Invitational, where green ribbons were being given out to all participants. Explain what that green ribbon is about and how that came about, please.
Yeah. The green ribbon, it's a symbol of mental health awareness. And her teammates started, after this tragedy, they were all pretty traumatized by it. And they really took it as a learning moment and became mental health advocates. And during this cross-country meet that's held at UW every year, they decided to put together these little green ribbons, and athletes across the country could wear them if they wanted. And they were so amazed by how many, like more than half of the athletes, boys, men and women, put on these ribbons as a sign just to reduce stigma and to show that, mental health matters.
And we see this. I mean, my 2 godsons went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, graduated in the last 5 years. And my oldest godson, Alex, he would wear a kind of a chartreuse, bright green color bandana on his backpack. I know a lot of student organizations, if they've been trained in how to help someone or assist them if they are in a mental health crisis, that if you see a student with that green bandana on campus, it's known that you could approach anybody with that and have that conversation.
Yes, the bandana project is similar to this, but the ribbon is a little less more for athletes just to wear while they're racing.
Right. So you get into this story, and you say that it's a tragic reminder, quoting from your story now, of course, tragic reminder of the stressors facing student athletes and the consequences when those pressures feel insurmountable. She was one of at least Sarah, five college athletes nationally who died by suicide in the spring of 2022. I am, for those watching on the stream, I'm wearing my Wisconsin Badger hoodie because the Badgers play a basketball game tonight. I'm a huge Wisconsin fan. Like I said, my two godsons graduated from UW-Madison. And one of the great things about this story that you reveal, that I think makes the reader think about, myself included, is we as fans get caught up in the fun of all this. And look, we have Brady Ewing on this show frequently, an alum of Badger football. But rarely do we as fans think about what these student athletes face. Talk a little bit about what you found in your reporting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge sports person, but I'm really struck. Sarah was a runner, so it's not a super popular sport in the way like football or basketball is. But just looking at the sports landscape and where it is right now, there is so much more pressure on these athletes than there was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You look at social media and how fans can just, harass athletes online if they miss a layup. There's, sports betting is exploding, and that increases that sort of online harassment. We have the Big Ten that's been expanded to include the West Coast, so that increases travel demands on athletes. And then we have this NIL era, which, in some ways is really good because athletes can now, get paid for their name, image, likeness. But it also puts a lot of pressure and expectations on them to live up to their endorsement deals. So there's just a lot of new facets to their life that athletes, 20 years ago did not have to deal with.
Yeah. You talk in your story that college athlete suicide rates are on the rise, according to a 2024 study, writing suicide is now the second most common cause of death amongst collegiate athletes, second only to accidents. I just think that a lot of people would find that astounding. You bring up here, the sports betting in particular, that it's a huge industry right now. And people are betting money that they can't afford to lose. Not everybody, but some people. And so they're betting on everything from who's going to score the first bucket in a basketball game to is the kicker going to make a field goal from more than 20 yards out. And when these young women and men are human, as we all are, you have adults who are going on social media and attacking these people because they, the fan, lost hundreds or thousands of dollars because a student athlete fell short. And blaming these, I know they're not kids, but young people for their betting. That has to be a tremendous amount of stress on these people being made to feel like trash because, people are blaming them for their betting. I never really thought about that seriously until this story.
Yeah, and I didn't really get into that facet that much because that wasn't, something that Sarah dealt with as a runner. It's a much lower profile sport, but I thought it was just worth mentioning that, this is the landscape and it's something, I'd love to explore more in future reporting.
Yeah, and I think it also just goes to show you, and you point this out in your article, maybe not directly, but the way I took it is, Seth Davis, the great sports reporter and broadcaster, tweets, I think, every day, be kind. Be kind. Words hurt. Words matter. We're all human. And you don't suggest that alone, there is no singular cause in Sarah's death or anybody else's, but that certainly was a part of it. Let's get into, we're talking to Kelly Meyerhofer, great reporter from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. You can find this story at JS Online. Talking about Sarah Schulz's story here, a track athlete at UW-Madison who died by suicide in 2022. You talk about this fighting for a chance to compete, and you write that Sarah was more often felt in competition with her teammates than other schools, according to Sarah's mom. Talk about the dynamics here, and we're going to get into UW-Madison has made some changes, but at the time, there was there was a lot of pressure from this one particular coach at UW.
Yeah, it wasn't something until I really started talking to her teammates that I understood about, being a runner in college athletics. You have no off season. You do cross country in the fall, indoor track in the winter, outdoor track in the spring. You're running 60 to 75 miles per week, and you're, living, hanging out with, and competing against your friends, your teammates. There's only seven spots on the travel roster during the cross country season, and there's 25 women on the team. So, a second, 2 seconds, if you're a little bit slower this day, you're not going to go to the meet. You're not going to compete. And it's just, that was a really tough environment for Sarah and a lot of her teammates to adjust to.
In talking with her friends and family, you point out that people who knew Sarah said, look, she was a kind of just a fun-go-lucky, my words, almost goofy person, told jokes, easy with a smile, appeared to be able to, quote unquote, handle it. Again, my interpretation of your writing. But then you get into the subheadline is fitting mental health into student athletes' schedule can be tough. You write in the article, quote, but mental health was rarely, if ever, discussed by the coach, said 5 of Sarah's former teammates. The UW athletic department had sports psychologists on staff, but they said the wait to see them was often more than a month. The sessions tended to be focused on improving athletic performance and privacy, and there were also privacy concerns. You write that online appointments and off-site community providers paid for by the athletic department are available for students concerned about privacy, but the department during this time had the equivalent of 2 full-time in-house mental health providers, as well as contracts with 9 community providers for about 700 athletes. The staffing levels are the norm, or were the norm, for that time. Again, 700 athletes, 2 full-time people with some community providers, but it might be months to get into these people. And I think particularly all of us, myself included, if we're struggling with mental health, it's like, well, if I can't get in to see somebody now, just forget it. I'll deal with it.
Yeah. It was an interesting part of my reporting, when I talked to the UW Athletics mental health director, he said, it wasn't even until 2016 that the NCAA recommended athletic departments should have like in-house counselors. I mean, previously, student athletes were just told to go to the campus counseling center, where wait times are even longer than what student athletes experience.
You write in the story as well, an NCAA survey, more than 23,000 students in 22-23, nearly 70% reported knowing where to go on campus for mental health problems, but only about half said they would feel comfortable in doing so. Again, we need to do more as a society. We need to expect more of our universities, whether they're athletes or not, to let young people know how they can, I know you're not here to analyze, but I mean, that's just my take is that, was that your reporting that you clearly seem to see a need for more money being spent on these type of things?
And in fairness to the UW Athletics, after this tragedy, they did increase their staffing. They made some changes, and their data that they provided to me does show that, there's been an increase in the number of athletes seeking out mental health services. One data point that I thought was really interesting was that since 2022, when this sort of like mental health liaison program started, where they sort of work with individual teams, when the football team got their mental health liaison, since then, there's been a 4-fold increase in the number of football players, utilizing mental health services because of this.
And I say that's fantastic, but again, tragic that it took someone's death to really get people to pay attention. And again, I'm a huge supporter of the football program as well, but unfortunate that it took a premier sport, quote unquote, my term, to get people to pay attention. That, if somebody plays track or runs track or cross country, that wasn't big enough. Wasn't a big enough revenue thing for some people to pay attention to. We're going to come back more with Kelly Meyerhofer of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. You're not going to want to miss this. The ending to this story is emotional. Come on back. Yeah, I got to the end and I had to take a minute.
Still putting off that deep clean.
Yeah, I got several emails from readers and my parents who read the story, and they all, they said, "Oh, it made me cry."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a puddle for a few minutes. But in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah.
We can come back and talk a little bit about this Mackenzie Wartenberger, the coach, a little bit, and then again what UW. We'll get into the changes that you have here, the mental health liaisons, mental health first aid, and more staff, and then we'll do the ending. So we'll have roughly 6.5-ish minutes when we come back.
Sounds good.
Before the April 1st general election. Much like the race 2 years ago, this will determine the balance of power on the court. If Susan Crawford wins, the court remains in liberal control. If Brad Schimmel wins, the court flips back to a right-wing majority. But there are a number of differing dynamics from the race in 2023. That race, won by Janet Protasewicz, was the culmination of a years-long effort.
Christine and Slinger, if you're still listening, I think you must have joined the show late because, yes, we addressed all those things at the start of the show. So I spent about a half an hour talking about Trump aligning with Russia and North Korea, and then came back around later on to talk about the gun control thing and pointed out that it's the same thing that Harris and Evers have proposed as well. But thanks for listening. Thanks for the comment. Beautiful Slinger.
All right, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC or CBS News, depending upon which great station on Civic Media's network you're listening to, followed by sports and weather, and then the Maggie Dawn Show from 2 until 4, followed by Dominic Selvia and Pete Schwaba's Nightlight from 6 until 8. Right now we are talking with Kelly Meyerhofer, the great reporter, higher education, her main beat at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Very powerful story. You can read it at jsonline.com. jsonline.com. It was published in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel yesterday. Headline, the pressure on student athletes keeps mounting. For one UW-Madison runner, it was too much. It is the story of Sarah Scholes, who died by suicide while a runner and student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2022. Kelly is here to detail this great reporting. And again, I said this offline, Kelly. I'm going to say it to your face online. I really hope that whoever is in charge of this nominates this, because this work should be recognized. This is kind of journalism that sheds light, makes you think, and you learn something. And it's a tribute, quite frankly, to Sarah and her life. So thank you for this great reporting. I want to get back into the story here. And before we forget, I want to make sure we get this in. If you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts or self-harm, you can call the National Suicide Helpline at 988. Just pick up your phone, dial or text 988. That's all it takes. And of course, that was put in part in place by Wisconsin's own Senator Tammy Baldwin. There is also a foundation. Did you have that in front of you, Kelly? There's a foundation for Sarah as well that they have set up. I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me.
Yeah, it's just the Sarah Scholes Foundation.org.
And Scholes is spelled Schulze. Sarah Scholes Foundation.org. Let's get into the story more, Kelly. You talk a little bit about one of Sarah's coaches, Mackenzie Wartenberger, who we will note is no longer with the program. But this particular coach, you're reporting, tell us about that.
Excuse me. Yeah, the coach that recruited Sarah was a different coach, and she ended up leaving right before Sarah started practice at UW. So they brought in a new coach, this woman named Mackenzie Wartenberger. And interviewing with her teammates, it showed that there was a lot of intensity, toxicity in the culture of the team. And the coach would often pit runners against each other. One of the athletes I talked to said she started having panic attacks, and she would dread the one-on-one meetings that she would have with the coach. And it seemed like an unhealthy team environment. Is sort of how Sarah's parents described the situation. And it sounds like there was some sort of investigation into the coach. She ended up. The athletic department told her she had to leave. She had to cut off all contact with student athletes in December of 2021.
The coach.
And then the coach. And then a month later, she stepped away. And she said on social media she was leaving to focus on her family. The university didn't provide a ton of records showing if there was an investigation. At least one athlete I talked to said she was interviewed as part of it. So the circumstances are still a little unclear about exactly what happened, but it was not a good environment for Sarah or a lot of her teammates. And it was one of many stressors that was going on, in the months leading up to her death.
You write into the article, she had an internship at the state capitol that she was basically forced to give up that she really, really enjoyed. Lots more in this story here. University of Wisconsin-Madison and UW Health have declined to give you a lot of details and open records requests so far. I want to get to this final phone call that Sarah's mom had with her 6 weeks before, or just before she died by suicide. Her mom say they talked about, soccer a little bit. Sarah, quote, Sarah gave no indication she was having similar thoughts, her mom said. She had just gotten into a summer study abroad program and started to imagine life without running. Her mom says, quote, it's probably the happiest we'd seen her in a long time. To go from that to 6 weeks later, she's no longer with us. It's just so jarring. And I think that's what's so shocking about suicide is just how fast it can happen. This perfect storm of events can trigger this avalanche of emotions that feel like they can't escape, unquote. I want to make sure we get the ending in here. She was going through a breakup with her boyfriend, according to family and friends. She was going through a lot of stress on the team. She wasn't able to access proper health care. As you note in your story, there's no one reason for her death, but all of those led up to it. UW Health did make changes in mental health liaisons, mental health first aid, and more staff. But let's get to the ending of this story. You tell it, Kelly. You have about a minute and a half left.
Sure, yeah. The story sort of ends circling back with the green ribbons and how her family and friends still wear these ribbons as part of their daily life, and including one time last spring when Sarah's parents met this teenager, Nick Ripke, on this walk for suicide prevention on campus last spring. It was the first time they met him, and he gave them a teddy bear, which had a recording device in it when you squeezed the bear, and it played a recording of the beat of Sarah's heart, which he received through a transplant. And he told them about how he had this heart condition when he was a kid, and it never allowed him to really do sports. So once he got Sarah's heart, he wanted to do something different that he wouldn't have been able to do, and he decided on running a 5K. And he didn't know at the time that his heart previously belonged to a Division I runner. So Sarah's mom sort of felt like it was Sarah's way of saying she just wanted to run one more time.
An incredible ending that Sarah's heart literally lives on because she was an organ donor and her parents allowed that to happen. Kelly Meyerhofer, incredible reporting. You can find this story and many others by Kelly at jsonline.com. Thank you so much for being with us, Kelly. Thanks for this reporting.
Yeah, thanks.
Our pleasure. That will do it for now. Thanks to Kelly. Thanks to Luke Mathers, Aaron Sommers, and you for listening. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. Remember, 988 if you need help. Maggie Dawn is next. Incredible, Kelly. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Todd. Have a great day.
Really appreciate it. All right, you too. Take care. Bye-bye.